In 1917, the United States entered World War I, providing crucial support to the Allies. Among the soldiers was a young man named John Miller, who left his small-town life in Ohio to fight overseas. John's departure was a momentous occasion in his town. The night before he left, the town held a small send-off at the local church. Friends and family gathered, offering prayers and words of encouragement. The church, with its wooden pews and stained glass windows, was filled with a mixture of pride and apprehension. The scent of incense mingled with the aroma of freshly baked goods brought by the town's women, creating a comforting yet poignant atmosphere. John's journey from Ohio to the front lines of Europe was long and arduous. The transition from the peaceful rolling fields of Ohio to the war-torn landscapes of France was jarring. The first time he set foot in the trenches, he was struck by the stark contrast to his previous life. The trenches were narrow and muddy, with the constant sound of artillery in the background. Rats scurried along the edges, and the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and decay. The horrors of trench warfare left deep scars on John, shaping his worldview and future decisions. The daily grind was brutal, with the stench of mud and death permeating every corner. Each day was a battle for survival, not just against the enemy, but against the very environment they were in. John would spend nights shivering in the cold, the distant sounds of artillery, a constant reminder of the war's relentless nature. Back home, his fiancée, Mary Thompson, worked in a munitions factory, contributing to the war effort. The factory was a world of its own, filled with the clatter of machines and the steady hum of activity. Women like Mary had taken on roles traditionally held by men, finding both empowerment and exhaustion in their new responsibilities. Mary's hands were often raw from the work, but the sense of contributing to something greater kept her spirits high. She formed close bonds with her co-workers, sharing stories and dreams during their brief breaks. They would gather in the break room, a small, dimly lit space with creaky wooden floors and the faint smell of oil, to drink tea and offer each other support. The war led to significant social and economic changes, including the increased participation of women in the workforce. Mary's experiences would later fuel her passion for women's rights and social justice. She often thought of the future during her late-night shifts, the rhythmic pounding of the machines providing a backdrop to her thoughts. She envisioned a world where women had the same opportunities as men, where they could work, vote, and live without restrictions. When John returned from the war in 1918, he was a changed man. The trauma of battle haunted him, manifesting in nightmares and sudden outbursts of anger. He would wake up in cold sweats, the sounds of battle still echoing in his mind. Mary struggled to connect with him, feeling a growing distance despite their physical proximity. She watched helplessly as John retreated into himself, the weight of his experiences erecting an invisible wall between them. The once vibrant and talkative man she loved had become silent and withdrawn, his eyes often staring into the distance as if seeing things she could not. Together, they faced the challenge of rebuilding their lives in a changed world, one where the echoes of war never truly faded. They moved into a small house on the outskirts of town, hoping that the tranquility of the countryside would help John heal. The house was modest, with a white picket fence and a small garden where Mary planted flowers. John spent his days working on the property, finding solace in the physical labor. The sound of the hammer and the feel of the soil in his hands provided a temporary escape from his memories. Mary, determined to support her husband, took on various jobs, from sewing uniforms to teaching at the local school. Her resilience and optimism were a beacon of hope for John, even on his darkest days. She encouraged him to join a local veteran support group, where he met other men who had experienced the same horrors. These meetings, held in the basement of the town hall, became a crucial part of John's recovery. The men would sit in a circle, sharing their stories and finding strength in their shared experiences. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the country, the Great Migration saw African Americans moving from the rural South to urban areas in the North and West, seeking better economic opportunities and escaping racial discrimination. Among them was a young man named Isaiah Jefferson, who moved with his family from Mississippi to Chicago. Isaiah's family packed their belongings into a few suitcases and boarded a northbound train, leaving behind the oppressive heat and the constant threat of violence. The train journey was long, with each mile taking them further from the life they had known. The passengers, many sharing similar stories of hardship, exchanged hopeful glances as they approached the bustling metropolis of Chicago. Arriving in Chicago, Isaiah was struck by the sheer size and energy of the city. The streets were alive with the sounds of street vendors, the clatter of streetcars, and the constant hum of industry. The neighborhoods were a patchwork of cultures and communities, each with its own unique rhythm. Isaiah found work in a factory, where the clang of machinery and the steady rhythm of production became the backdrop of his new life. The factory floor was a stark contrast to the fields he had worked in Mississippi, filled with the smell of oil and the noise of engines. However, life in the North was not free from prejudice. He encountered racial hostility and economic exploitation, but he also found a sense of community among fellow migrants. Churches and social clubs became sanctuaries where they could share their experiences and support one another. One evening, Isaiah attended a meeting at the local church where the congregation gathered to discuss their struggles and aspirations. The church, with its high ceilings and stained glass windows, was a place of solace and strength. As the pastor spoke about unity and perseverance, Isaiah felt a renewed sense of purpose. After the meeting, he joined a group of men discussing the importance of political activism. Among them was a man named Richard, who had been involved in civil rights work for years. Richard's passionate words about the need for organized resistance inspired Isaiah to become more politically active. The Red Summer of 1919 brought violent racial riots, highlighting the ongoing struggle for civil rights. During one of these riots, Isaiah's brother Samuel was severely injured. The chaos of the riot, with its shouts and screams, left an indelible mark on Isaiah. The sight of his brother bleeding and vulnerable galvanized Isaiah to become more politically active, joining the NAACP and advocating for racial equality. His journey was fraught with danger, but his resolve to fight for justice grew stronger with each challenge. Isaiah's speeches became a beacon of hope for many, his words echoing the collective yearning for a better future. "Brothers and sisters," Isaiah began one evening at an NAACP meeting, "we must stand together against this tide of hatred. We have faced oppression for too long, and it's time we demand our rights." The room was filled with nods of agreement and murmurs of support. Isaiah's voice, steady and strong, carried the weight of his experiences and the hopes of those who listened. The 18th Amendment in 1920 prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, leading to the rise of speakeasies and organized crime. In New York City, a young woman named Clara Bennett found herself entangled in the underworld of Prohibition-era nightlife. Clara worked as a singer in a speakeasy run by the notorious gangster, Al Capone. The dimly lit establishment, filled with the haze of cigar smoke and the scent of illicit liquor, was a world of its own. Clara's talent and beauty drew many admirers, but the danger of her associations was ever present. She performed nightly, her voice a soothing balm to the patrons, but always aware of the precariousness of her position. One night, after a particularly electrifying performance, Clara sat at the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey. The speakeasy was buzzing with conversation and laughter, the band playing softly in the background. A young journalist named Tom Reynolds approached her, his eyes filled with curiosity and admiration. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the din. Clara glanced at him, recognizing the determination in his eyes. "Sure," she replied, gesturing to the empty stool beside her. Tom took a seat and ordered a drink. "Your performance was amazing. You have an incredible voice." "Thank you," Clara said, her smile tinged with caution. "But I have a feeling you're not here just to compliment my singing." Tom chuckled. "You caught me. I'm a journalist, and I'm working on a story about the corruption and crime surrounding Prohibition. I'd love to hear your perspective." Clara's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's a dangerous topic, Mr. Reynolds. People don't like their secrets exposed." "I'm aware," Tom replied, his tone serious. "But the truth needs to be told, and I think you could help me do that." Clara hesitated, weighing the risks. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "This isn't something I can decide lightly." Tom nodded, respecting her caution. "Take your time. I'll be around if you change your mind." Her secret desire was to escape the criminal world and pursue a legitimate career in music. Clara's relationship with Tom added layers of complexity to her life. Their romance was marked by secrecy and fear, as Tom's investigations put both of them at risk. They would meet in shadowy corners, their conversations hushed and urgent. Clara often feared for Tom's safety, knowing that his work could attract the wrath of dangerous men. In Harlem, New York, the cultural and intellectual movement known as the Harlem Renaissance flourished. Figures like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Duke Ellington brought African-American art, literature, and music to the forefront, challenging stereotypes and advocating for equality. Langston Hughes's poetry captured the struggles and triumphs of his people, weaving a narrative of resilience and hope. His words resonated deeply with a young woman named Ella Wright, who dreamed of becoming a writer. The vibrant streets of Harlem, filled with music and lively conversations, became Ella's muse. Ella's journey was one of self-discovery and empowerment, as she sought to find her voice in a world that often silenced it. She would spend hours in Harlem's bustling cafes, her notebook open in front of her, capturing the essence of the neighborhood. The sounds of jazz floated through the air, mingling with the laughter and chatter of the patrons. Ella's mentor, Zora Neale Hurston, encouraged her to write about her experiences and the vibrant culture of Harlem. Their bond was one of mutual respect and shared passion for storytelling. "Write what you know, Ella," Zora advised one afternoon as they sat in a small, cozy cafe. "Your voice is unique, and your experiences are valuable. Don't be afraid to share them with the world." Ella nodded, her eyes bright with determination. "I want to write stories that matter, stories that reflect the truth of our lives." "And you will," Zora said with a warm smile. "Just stay true to yourself and your vision." Ella's work became a testament to the enduring spirit of a people determined to claim their place in the American story. Her writings, rich with the sounds and sights of Harlem, resonated with many, capturing the essence of a pivotal moment in history. She published her first collection of stories, which was met with critical acclaim. The book was celebrated for its authenticity and depth, bringing Ella recognition and establishing her as a significant voice in the Harlem Renaissance. The collapse of the stock market in 1929 marked the beginning of the Great Depression, a severe economic downturn that affected millions of Americans. Among them was John Miller, who had become a successful businessman in the post-war years. The crash wiped out his savings and left him struggling to provide for his family. The once bustling streets of New York now echoed with the cries of desperate vendors and the shuffling feet of the unemployed. Bread lines stretched for blocks, and soup kitchens became a lifeline for many. The economic hardship took a toll on John's mental health, exacerbating the trauma from the war. He would often sit in silence, the weight of his failures pressing down on him. Mary, now a mother of two, faced the challenge of supporting her family while dealing with John's increasing instability. Their once hopeful future seemed bleak, but Mary's resilience kept them going. She took on odd jobs, her hands growing calloused and her spirit weary. But she never gave up. One evening, as Mary sat by the fireplace, knitting a sweater for her youngest child, John joined her, his face etched with worry. "I'm sorry, Mary," he said quietly, his voice heavy with guilt. "I feel like I've let you all down." Mary looked up, her eyes filled with compassion. "You haven't let us down, John. We're a family, and we face these challenges together. We'll find a way through this." John sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I don't know how much more I can take. The nightmares, the memories. It's like I'm still in those trenches." Mary reached out, taking his hand in hers. "You're not alone, John. We'll get through this, one step at a time." Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal aimed at economic recovery, financial reform, and social welfare. Key initiatives included Social Security, the Works Progress Administration, WPA, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC. These programs provided relief to struggling families like the Millers. Mary found work with the WPA, which helped her regain a sense of purpose and hope. The family's financial situation slowly improved, but the scars of the Depression remained. John's mental health continued to be a source of concern, and Mary sought help from a local veterans organization, where she met other wives facing similar challenges. The support group became her lifeline, a place where she could share her burdens and find solace in the company of those who understood her struggles. One afternoon, at a meeting in the Veterans Hall, Mary shared her story with the group. "John came back from the war a different man," she said, her voice wavering. "The nightmares, the anger. It's like he's fighting the war all over again, every day." A woman named Margaret, sitting across from Mary, nodded in understanding. "My husband is the same," she said softly. "It's been years, but the trauma never really goes away. We just have to support them and each other." Mary found comfort in Margaret's words, realizing she was not alone in her struggle. Over time, the group formed a tight-knit community, offering practical advice, emotional support, and a sense of belonging. Increased unionization and labor strikes led to improved working conditions and wages for many American workers. Isaiah Jefferson, now a foreman in a Chicago factory, became a prominent union leader. His efforts to organize workers and demand fair treatment often put him at odds with factory owners. Isaiah's leadership was tested during a major strike in 1934, where tensions between workers and management escalated into violence. The factory floor, usually a place of relentless production, became a battleground. "Brothers and sisters, we stand together today for our rights," Isaiah declared, standing on a makeshift platform in the factory yard. "We demand fair wages, reasonable hours, and safe working conditions. We will not be silenced." The crowd of workers cheered, their resolve strengthened by Isaiah's words. The strike was fraught with challenges, including threats and intimidation from the factory owners. One night, as Isaiah was leaving the Union Hall, he was confronted by a group of hired thugs. "You're causing a lot of trouble, Jefferson," one of them sneered. "Time to back off." Isaiah stood his ground, his heart pounding. "I'm not backing down. We're fighting for what's right." The encounter left him shaken but more determined than ever. His determination to fight for workers' rights was fueled by his own experiences of exploitation and discrimination. The strike was a turning point in Isaiah's life, cementing his commitment to social justice. His speeches, filled with passion and conviction, inspired many to join the cause, despite the risks involved. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 propelled the United States into World War II. The war effort led to significant changes in the American economy, society, and international relations. Among those who enlisted was Isaiah Jefferson's son David, who joined the Army Air Corps. David's experiences in the war mirrored those of his father's in World War I, but with a new generation's perspective. The camaraderie and challenges of military life shaped David's character as he navigated the complexities of war and its impact on his identity. The vast open skies became his battlefield, the roar of the engine a constant companion. Each mission was fraught with danger, but also a sense of duty and honor. During a lull between missions, David wrote letters to his family, trying to convey his experiences without causing them undue worry. "Dear Mom and Dad," he wrote one evening, sitting under the dim light of a barracks lamp. "Things are tough here, but we're holding up. The guys are great, and we're all looking out for each other. I miss you all more than I can say." Following the Pearl Harbor attack, over 120,000 Japanese Americans were forcibly relocated to internment camps. Among them was a young woman named Aiko Tanaka, whose family was uprooted from their home in California. The internment was a traumatic experience, marked by loss and uncertainty. Aiko's resilience and determination to rebuild her life were tested daily in the harsh conditions of the camp. The makeshift barracks, surrounded by barbed wire, were a constant reminder of their displacement. She found solace in art, creating drawings that captured the pain and hope of her community. Aiko's friendship with a fellow internee, Kenji Nakamura, provided emotional support and a shared sense of purpose. Their bond grew stronger as they navigated the challenges of camp life, finding moments of joy amidst the despair. One evening, Aiko and Kenji sat under a small tree just outside the barracks, the setting sun casting a golden hue over the camp. Aiko held a sketch pad on her lap, her pencil moving swiftly across the paper. "What are you drawing?" Kenji asked, leaning closer to see. Aiko smiled faintly. "Just trying to capture this moment. Even in a place like this, there are things worth remembering." Kenji nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We have to hold on to those moments. They remind us that we're still human, that we still have hope." The successful D-Day invasion in 1944 marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. David Jefferson participated in the invasion, his bravery and leadership earning him recognition. The beaches of Normandy were a scene of chaos and courage as soldiers fought against overwhelming odds. David's unit faced heavy resistance, the air filled with the deafening sounds of gunfire and explosions. Amidst the turmoil, David's resolve never wavered. His actions during the invasion, particularly his efforts to save wounded comrades, earned him several commendations. As the war in Europe ended in May 1945, followed by Japan's surrender in August after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world began to reckon with the immense cost of the conflict. David's return home was bittersweet. The joy of reunion with his family was tempered by the memories of war and the loss of comrades. His experiences influenced his post-war career as he became an advocate for veterans' rights and mental health support. He often spoke at veteran gatherings, sharing his story and encouraging others to seek help. His efforts contributed to the establishment of support networks for returning soldiers, helping many navigate the difficult transition back to civilian life. "War changes you," David said at one of these gatherings, his voice filled with emotion. "But it also teaches you the value of life, of friendship, and of fighting for what you believe in. We must support each other, just as we did on the battlefield." In the aftermath of World War II, the United States played a key role in establishing the United Nations, aimed at promoting international cooperation and preventing future conflicts. The formation of the UN represented a hope for a more peaceful and just world, a hope shared by many who had witnessed the horrors of war. Leaders from around the globe gathered to discuss the future of international relations, their discussions fueled by a collective desire to avoid the mistakes of the past. The establishment of the UN marked a significant step towards global collaboration, with the aim of fostering peace and stability. At the inaugural assembly of the United Nations, Representatives from various countries stood together, united by a common goal. The hall was filled with a palpable sense of optimism and determination. As the delegates signed the UN Charter, the world watched, hopeful that this new organization would succeed where previous efforts had failed. The post-war years brought new challenges and opportunities. Mary Miller continued her work with veterans organizations, helping families navigate the complexities of post-war life. Her efforts were instrumental in creating support networks for veterans and their families. She organized community events, providing a space for veterans and their families to share their experiences and find support. Her dedication to the cause earned her widespread respect and admiration. One sunny afternoon, Mary organized a picnic for the local veterans and their families. The park was filled with laughter and the sound of children playing. John, who had been reluctant to attend, found himself relaxing as he watched the children chase each other across the grass. "This was a great idea, Mary," he said, taking her hand. "It's good to see everyone smiling again." Mary smiled back, her eyes shining with pride. "It's important for us to come together, to support each other. We've all been through so much, but we're stronger together." Isaiah Jefferson's leadership in the labor movement grew as he fought for fair wages and safe working conditions. His son David joined him in these efforts, bringing his experiences as a veteran to the cause. Together, they worked to create a more just and equitable society. Isaiah's fiery speeches and David's calm, reasoned arguments complemented each other, making them a formidable team. They led several successful campaigns, resulting in significant improvements in working conditions and wages for many workers. At a labor rally in Chicago, Isaiah stood before a large crowd, his voice ringing out with conviction. "We will not be silenced. We demand justice, fair wages, and safe working conditions for all. Together, we can make a difference." David stood beside him, nodding in agreement. "My father is right. We've fought for our country, and now we must fight for our rights here at home." Aiko Tanaka and Kenji Nakamura's art studio continued to thrive, becoming a beacon of hope and creativity in their community. Their work became a powerful tool for education and change, reaching audiences far beyond their local community. They were invited to exhibit their work in galleries across the country, bringing their message of resilience and hope to a wider audience. One evening, after a successful exhibition in New York, Aiko and Kenji sat together in their studio, reflecting on their journey. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Aiko said, her voice filled with wonder. "Yes, we have," Kenji agreed, his eyes soft with affection. "And we have so much more to give." The years following World War II were marked by rapid technological advancements and social changes. The civil rights movement gained momentum, challenging segregation and discrimination across the United States. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks became symbols of the struggle for equality, their courage inspiring millions.